Perfect. Okay. Awesome. I'm excited to be here. Just like Autumn said, there's a ton of changes that we're constantly making on our sales floor here at Avtech Capital, and a ton of different things that we choose to focus on at any given time. Um, One of those things, obviously, is kind of the topic of our webinar today is stop pitching and start listening. And so I'm a national sales manager here. I manage a group of direct reps who also obviously work with have a ton of different broker relationships. And so we see that side of it a ton. And one of the things that we're constantly trying to improve is our approach to finding new deals and new opportunities to go out and find financing for. And so something that we always focus on is what we say and how we say it, right? That's always going to be an important component is how do we show up for these clients and what kinds of things are we saying to make sure that they feel the confidence that they need in order to know that we're going to fund the deal for them. But I think the most important step, the most maybe underrated sales skill to me is the importance of listening, because what you say and how you say it doesn't really matter unless you know what you're selling, right? And you don't know what you're selling until you're listening correctly and are able to uncover the true pain point there. So I'm excited to kind of dive into to jump into some of the things that we focus on specifically with listening. So my approach is always like I love talking about sales. I'm super passionate about the process of how we find deals and how we talk to clients. And one thing that I try to do is I always try to relate sales back to our everyday life. I want to simplify it as much as possible. And I want to make it stop overthinking our approach and really just like boil it down to how can we make this as easy as possible. And one of the things that I wanted to start off by just giving a quick story. Give me one second here. So I wanted to tell a quick story on how I was actually this was recent. I've actually always known the importance of listening when it comes to sales, but it wasn't until I was actually sold myself that I realized how important listening actually is, and it really helped paint the picture for me and really my everyday approach to how we sell here at Avtech Capital. And this has nothing to do with equipment finance, but bear with me because it's going to paint the picture, and I think it's going to really drive the start us off on a good foot. Um, and so I signed up for probably about a year and a half ago. I signed up for a lawn care service for my house. So this was specifically to take care of like weeds and any like bushes that get out of control and maybe things that grow up in your grass that just like look really ugly. It wasn't to mow the lawn or anything like that, but it was really just to make sure that the grass was healthy, the soil was healthy, and it looked really good. I fell into the trap of doing an internal competition with my neighbors. They didn't know it was a competition, but obviously I did, and I wanted to have the best grass in the neighborhood. And I was seeing some weeds pop up, and I needed to get it taken care of. So anyway, I signed up with this service, and this service was supposed to be. I'm going to try to make this as short as possible, but the service was supposed to be like four services for the 4 months in the summer, and then at the next year you had the chance to renew if you wanted to. So it was only for the summer months, and I know for sure that like I did not sign up for auto pay. Like I'm one of those guys that just cannot stand auto pay for something like a lawn care service, especially if it's like a renewal the following year after you've already forgotten about it. And so I know for a fact that I had a conversation with them saying, hey, like I'm going to pay in advance for the 4 months, but I don't want to be auto renewed next year and then have some guy show up and do my lawn after I've already forgotten about it, right? And now I'm paying a year in advance again. Like I want to see how this year goes and then kind of analyze from there. Long story short, they did the summer. The last summer went well. They limited the weeds. I think I won the competition with my neighbors, but they probably think differently. And then fast forward a few months. and I get this notification saying that, hey, your lawn technician is on his way to your house to do his first service of the year. And I got this message in February, and obviously February is not a summer month, right? So I'm thinking to myself now, well, like, why in the world would they be coming out in February? We're located in Utah. Like, there's still snow on the ground at our house. Like, what are they going to do? They can't fertilize my lawn. They can't do anything to protect my lawn when there's snow on the ground. Like, why are they coming to do a service? And so I'm a little like skeptical about that, but then also I start to get a little hot because I was auto renewed for a service the following year after I told them I didn't want to do that. And so I was a little upset. And the poor technician heard it from me when he called me. They always call after they do a service and let you know what they see. Anyway, this guy calls me and I'm kind of like, "Hey man, I understand this isn't your problem, but I did not auto renew. Like I'm not going to pay for this service when you guys are coming out in February with snow on the ground, and I didn't agree to this. I'm not on auto pay. Like you got to connect me with your manager, whatever, right?" And so here I go from I'm like at this point I'm not just at zero, like I'm at negative, right? Like I'm like behind. He's starting from way behind the eight ball because he's already dealing with somebody that's frustrated. And this isn't even a sales rep, right? This is just a technician. And so I got sold by somebody who wasn't even a sales rep. That just shows you how often people are selling every day. Um, but he talks to me and he's just like kind of like walking me through and he's like, "Hey, I understand, like no problem." He completely validated everything I was saying. He's like, "Look, I didn't know about any of this. I just kind of show up and do the service." And he started to kind of ask me a couple questions and was telling me like while he had me like what he was noticing in my lawn. And he touched on something that was the biggest hot button that he could have touched on with me. And we've had a gopher issue in our yard. These gophers, man, if anybody's had gophers, they tear up your yard. There's tunnels, there's mounds of dirt in your yard. And I've been dealing with them for the last 2 years. I thought I had them on the mend and I took care of it last year and then they popped back up and he noticed it. And so he called it out. And it was the one thing that he probably could have said to get me to like ears perk up, right? He's like, "Look, I get it. Like, I'll talk to the manager. I'll get this taken care of. We won't charge you for this service. We'll take care of it." But he's like, "While I have you, I'm just curious. Like, I'm assuming you noticed some of the mounds from the gophers in the backyard, right? And this and that." And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, yeah, those have been a headache for me. Like, I've been trying to take care of it. This, and that." He asked me a couple questions of how I've tried to treat it, what I've done, and he just sat there and listened. And then finally, like after I spewed all my information and my hate towards these gophers and what they're doing to my yard, he said, "You know what? Like, I know this isn't part of the service, but one thing we do to help bring the yard back to like healthy, like the healthy state that it was in before the gophers is we can do like an aeration and make sure that the soil and all the roots start to grow back together and really bring your yard back to looking how it did before." Um, and long story short, like I'm listening to this, I'm like, "Yeah, like that actually, like that sounds like something I should probably do." And this call or this experience started from me wanting to cancel the service completely to now I just got upsold and now I'm paying for additional services that I did not have any intention of paying for before that call. And so it just goes to show you like how important listening is when you really understand what the true pain points are. In my case, it was the gophers, right? Like that was the selling point. Once you understand that that's the true pain, you can really do like now it's my idea to be sold rather than his, and it's a lot easier to get the deals done. And so I want to kind of paint that picture. I know that was kind of a little long of a story, but it just shows like every day, every interaction that you have with people, you're selling. And the more you listen, the more you really understand what people are dealing with, and the more solutions that you can find for them. And so I think like one phrase that's always stuck with me is seek to understand before you seek to be understood. And I've kind of got this method that I share with a lot of our sales reps here is I call it the rocking chair method. And this is kind of just an approach in a conversation when you're speaking to people is while they're talking, you always validate what they say, but while they're talking, you always like when you respond, it's kind of like a rock back in the rocking chair, of restating some of their concerns or restating what you heard, maybe rephrasing it in a different way and checking for understanding. Hey, am I understanding this correctly? It sounds like this is happening. It sounds like one of the things that is most important to you is your interest rate here. Is that fair to say? And they're like, yeah, that's fair to say. Okay, and now I'm moving forward in the rocking chair and I can actually speak to the things that I just understood from them as being a key concern for them. And so the rocking chair method is something that I always constantly try to think about in any conversation I'm in is, do I actually understand what they're wanting or what what the concern is for them? I think like one of the biggest things that gets people into trouble in sales and especially in our industry is that we assume too much. And I see this here as well at Avtech Capital is we make assumptions early on in the process, in the sales process of thinking that we know what people want. And I think a big assumption that everybody makes is obviously, oh, well, they just have to have the lowest interest rate, right? Like that's all they care about. Like we got to get them the lowest rate possible. But in my experience, it's actually like obviously interest rate's important. Nobody wants to pay a ton of money. Like their cost of capital, they don't want to be through the roof. But there's also other levers that might matter more than that, that you can touch on, right? We have experiences like this every day where even just something as simple as as speaking to the same person throughout the entire sales cycle is really important to a lot of people, and that may take the cake. That may be more important than just an all-in interest rate for people. And so oftentimes we assume that we know what people are looking for, but we never really ask them. And I think like one of the best things that we can do is like really understand what it is that they're looking for, right? And some of the like an actionable thing that you can do is start asking some of those questions. Like I love just asking people point blank, like what would make this a good situation for you? Like what is the ideal situation that you're looking for with this financing? Is there something in specific you're looking for? What stands out most to you, right? Like these are some of those questions that you may be able to ask out the gate to really gauge like what's important to them before you start to try to sell them and push them in a different direction or find a source to fund the deal. Because if you really understand what people are looking for, now you can really sell to strengths of certain companies. Um, and so obviously like listening shows clients that you care about them, right? You care about their process and you really care about what's important to them, and you're going to go and try to find a solution for that. And the more they trust you, the more they're going to do business with you, right? Like we're all about repeat business here at Avtech Capital. We love it. Repeat customers are the best customers. And the only way that we're able to do that is if they trust us and they understand that we're going to go and fight for them, to make sure that we get them the best situation possible. Obviously, another important key here when listening is people don't buy products, um, they buy solutions, right? Like most people will always come back to you if you figured out a way to solve a problem that they had, right? And like if you think about it, like you're never going to go to a doctor's office and you're never going to walk into the doctor's office and without sharing any information about how you're feeling or what's going on, are they going to be diagnosing you with some sort of sickness or illness, right? Like more often than not, I would bet like 99.9% of the time you walk into a doctor's office, the first question is always, tell me what's going on. Like, what are you feeling? What's happening? What brought you here today? Like, they're always trying to gauge, like, okay, well, what kinds of things are happening here? And then they diagnose from that based off of the questions and the feedback that you give them. It's the same thing in what we do every single day. It's we can't understand what's important to people or how to like find a solution for them until we ask them the right questions or let them tell us what they're looking for. right? And so I think that's one of the best analogies that I've heard is like doctors, right? Doctors sell every single day. They're selling you and telling you exactly what's wrong with you based off of what you're telling them. And that's exactly what we should be doing is anytime we're finding a home for their deal or for the financing, it's okay, is this funding source the best fit for what my client is looking for here? And obviously some funding sources are better at different things, right? And I think something that it gives us power here at Avtech Capital is like we recognize that we're not everything for everybody, right? Like we're not going to be a great fit for every company. That being said, we believe that we can put things in place and structure things accordingly to be a good, really good fit for most companies. Um, but we understand that other people have different priorities and companies need to do what's best for them. And sometimes that doesn't fit what we do. And then there's power in knowing that, hey, like we're not going to be able to solve everybody's problem. But we're going to do our absolute best to figure out a way to do it the best way we know how. One of the other things is uncovering like true pain points. I know I've been guilty of this, and I know many people have, is when you're actively selling, it feels like you're running downhill, right? Like you're pitching people, you're in a conversation and you're running downhill, no stop. You've got all the momentum in the world and you're like a freight train and you're just attaching to anything that they give you, right? They're like, "Oh, you heard something about rates, so that must be a true pain point." Or you heard something about fast funding and so that must be the first thing that we attach to. And so one of the things that I think about when it comes to true pain points is in my experience, it's always the pain or the concerns that come up like on the second or third level of questions, right? Most of the time they'll usually give you some kind of, when you ask them point blank like, hey, what's important to you here, they usually throw out one or two responses that are kind of just like obvious answers, right? Like they're just kind of generic answers that don't have a ton of like depth to them. And it's important to kind of every company, but like what are really like the key pain points here that we're trying to solve for? And those usually come at the end of a few additional questions after you've heard one true focus of theirs. If you can ask a couple more questions, they'll give you all the answers to the test. Um, I love this. I love just asking people like what's important to them, and and then once I think that they're done, what else? What's else? What else is important to you? What's something that maybe we're not thinking of right now that may be like a strong selling point for you guys when it comes to finding a financing partner, right? Like these are questions that make them think and they're open-ended and they're not I'm just trying to uncover the full opportunity that we have and really like dive into, okay, is this the actual pain point or is this just a precursor to some of the deeper things that really matters most to them? Um, I had an experience of this actually the other day. We've been working with a company for probably about like 3 or 4 months now. And no fault of anybody's. It's just kind of one of those deals that moves a little bit slow. There's kind of a lot of moving parts and different priorities come up with this company, and it kind of took their eyes away from this specific financing project for a period of time. Anyway, we circled back and we're back engaged now, and there's some conversations that we're having, and we sent out a few proposals to this company for their project, and saying, hey, like these are kind of some of this is the structure that we're thinking that's going to give us a good chance of getting this project approved for you and getting you the funds that you need. And it like to their credit, they always respond to us, right? There's a really good relationship there of trust from the beginning, and so they're always super communicative with us. But in this case, we weren't getting responses right away, and we are kind of wondering like, hey, what's going on? Like we were thinking to ourselves, oh, it must be a structure thing. Like there must be something in there that maybe they didn't like the term length, or maybe they didn't love the interest rate component, and we were pretty aggressive on it. Like we wanted to make sure that it was like a good situation for them. So like we went pretty thin on it to get it in, but we're asking ourselves, hey, like what's going on here? Like it's got to be something structure related. And then it wasn't until the other day when we finally made some traction where I was like, hey guys, like I think I just asked them point blank. I was like, where do we go from here? Like, what's next? Because we've got a couple proposals out. We want to make sure that we keep our momentum here and get this project wrapped up for you guys. Like, what are we missing? And I was expecting some response on the structure of the proposals and saying, hey, we don't love this or love that. But the sticking point was, hey, we just don't want to pay that heavy of a deposit up front to get into underwriting. Like that's kind of a big deposit for us to just throw out without having any like guarantee here. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, like I would have never known that the deposit was the sticking point or the friction there if we didn't ask out the gate, right? Or like if we didn't ask what else is holding them up. And so once we knew that, it's like, oh, okay, like no problem. We have some levers that we can pull that kind of make that a little less friction. And we did that, got it signed, brought it in, and it's like, hey, that's like if we would have never asked, we would have never known. And so the true pain point there actually wasn't structure at all. They didn't have any questions about that. It was like, hey, we're just waiting. Like this is kind of a big deposit for us. Is there any leeway there? As soon as we made that change, it's moving forward now, right? So, but it took us a minute to understand what the true pain point was because we didn't understand that beforehand. We didn't do our due diligence beforehand and really didn't have a ton of conversations on the deposit until it came up the other day. And so that was kind of a learning moment for us as well. Okay. Obviously, the right questions lead to the right answers. I kind of just walked through this a little bit. But the obvious, like, I think it's really important to ask the questions that you want to ask. I mentioned before we started that we like oftentimes you want to try to come up with like the most creative question and like ask a really smart question to people and you want to make sure that you sound like you're really buttoned up and you know exactly what you're talking about and maybe you actually don't even check for understanding. Like sometimes people will say things and throw it out and it's like, hey, I actually don't know what you mean by that, but maybe I'm a little too nervous to ask what you mean by that because it makes me look like I don't know what I'm talking about. And so we just kind of let it like slide by without asking the questions we want to ask. And one thing I think that's really important when it comes to listening is always make sure that you actually understand what they're saying and ask the questions that you want to ask. Like you don't have to have some thought out, thought provoking question that just like stumps people and makes you sound like you're the smartest person in equipment finance or getting deals funded, right? Like just ask the questions that you want to ask, be a human being, have a conversation with people. And if you don't understand something, say, hey, I'm not sure what you mean by that, right? Like you're an expert in your industry. Like I'm here to help you find financing, but like I'm not sure what you exactly mean by that. Can you help me understand that a little bit more? And then that way, like if you can understand, then now you can make sure that you find the best home and the best route for people to get financing. Um, this has been one of the biggest game changers for me. It's like I've stopped thinking so much about the questions I'm asking, and I'm talking to people as like I would in a conversation. I'm asking the questions I want to ask, and it's really helped me really be able to get the clarity that I need to give them the solutions that they're looking for. Okay, so this is a big one to me actually. Um, Sales resistance is huge, right? Like we've all had instances where we've tried to fit a square peg into a circle hole, right? Like we're just trying to force the issue and like really trying to push our like our solutions on people and saying, hey, this is what makes us great, right? We're doing a lot of pitching. We're doing a lot of selling to people and trying to help them see our value and really like we're doing probably 80% of the talking when we're pitching and we're essentially just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and hoping that we say one thing that sticks with them that they can attach to and start listening a little bit more. But when we do that, it's actually really counterproductive when we pitch heavy because people can feel that pressure. And as soon as they start to feel like they're being pitched to or sold to, the sales resistance goes up and they're like, hey, I'm good, right? Like, if any of you guys have had any experience doing cold calls, like that's a lot of what we do here at Avtech Capital, or direct guys at least. There's a lot of cold calls. And so you can feel the tone and the pitching and the pressure that comes on a cold call, and people on the other end, these are the conversations where like, hey, we're just not interested, like appreciate time, bye, right? Like you're getting hung up on because that resistance is so strong. But when you really come at them and change your approach a little bit, and obviously you've got to pitch, right? You've got to build value for people. You've got to make them understand like at least why you're calling, right? And what the value is that you can bring. But when you really are using your like opening statements and things to ask questions and get to objections and listen to their responses, like I always think objections are an extremely positive thing. If people are giving you objections, that means that they're listening to what you're saying and they care enough to give an objection. And that just gives you clarity, but it also gives you an opportunity to sell, right? It gives you an opportunity to find a solution for those objections that they're sharing with you. And so I'm trying to do anything that I possibly can to limit my sales resistance when I talk to people. I'm trying to talk 20% of the time and listen 80% of the time, not the other way around. Because I objections, when they give you objections, that shows exactly what is important and what truly matters to these customers. And so I think when you ask good questions, you get better deals and you get less friction. And yeah, the more you listen, the less you have to overcome, really. And so I'm a super big advocate of listening, and not even, like I said in the beginning of this whole thing, is everyday life listening is important too, right? One of the biggest things that I see every day when I go home at night and I'm talking to my wife, if she's talking to me about a problem and I'm just trying to find a solution right away without letting her finish, she's always going to look at me and be like, you're not listening to me. You just want to find like a solution to the problem. And it's like, help me really take a step back and be like, you're right. You know what? Like, and this is similar to what I do every day at work when we're trying to fund these projects for people, is sometimes I just try to find solutions right away. And I don't really like take a second to listen to exactly what they're saying and find the right solution, not trying to fix a problem that's actually not the real problem. And so anyway, I know that was a long-winded discussion on listening and why it's important and what we do kind of here at Avtech and what some of those components are. I do want to open it up for questions if there are any. Would love to get some feedback and kind of end this with a few discussion points.
Thank you, Grant. I think that was awesome. Yeah, we'll wait maybe 1 or 2 minutes, see if any questions come through. And I did put Grant's contact info here if anyone has any sales related questions or anything related to the presentation. If you'd like a copy of the presentation, feel free to reach out to him directly. If you have any, brokers have any questions about becoming a partner with Avtech, you can go to our broker page on our website, fill out a form. Looks like Todd Siegel has a question. Let's see. Thoughts on email prospecting versus cold calling?
It's a good question. Yeah, so I think there's a time and place for it all. Like I think you're kind of going to get me down a rabbit hole here, but email prospecting is super important. I think you have to have a component of both. That's going to be kind of my short answer there. But we've kind of done a lot of research on this and done a lot of we've put a lot of systems in place that allow us to do both. And I would say this, it feels, and the data kind of shows this, is that cold calling was one of the most important aspects to prospecting and finding new deals a long time ago. And then it slowly started to transition to, hey, we can be pretty effective with doing email prospecting as well. And getting into people's inboxes is a really important component, and we can get people to just respond to emails without having to do the tough cold calling. And so that was a thing for a long time. And then over time, that started to get crowded too. And now a lot of like, not to get into too much detail, but now you see a lot of the email providers are starting to put really like strong, like, what's the words, like they're trying to gatekeep so you can't really get into people's email inboxes as well as you could in the past. And so companies are starting to put up firewalls. Email providers are starting to put up like protections against like getting flooded with marketing emails or sales emails. And so they've gotten pretty good at noticing that stuff. And so now we've started to see a new transition back to cold calling as being another strong, or never not it never really went away, but emailing was a real big focus, same with LinkedIn. But now it's slowly starting to transition back to cold calls and over the phone. I love our chances here at Avtech Capital when we can get somebody on the phone. I think everybody here would probably agree. I think you cover so much ground when you are on the phone with somebody and you're actually able to talk through each concept, and each like piece of the deal rather than an email. But I think, again, I will say like time and place for both. At Avtech Capital, we use LinkedIn, we use cold calls, and we use emails. We use a mixture of the three. But our bread and butter is always going to be the cold calls because we just like talking to people and getting momentum that way. It's a good question though.
Looks like he also had a question, looking at Apollo lead generation. Any thoughts on AI or other types or other ways to get quality leads, things like that?
Yeah, another good question. So Apollo is good. We've actually looked at Apollo a couple times for lead generation. At Avtech Capital, we use ZoomInfo. So ZoomInfo's, from our experience, has kind of been like I would say like the industry leader when it comes to lead generation. They've kind of have the market share there. They've been a really good tool for us. Apollo is really good too. Like we actually have some reps on the floor here that do utilize some Apollo licenses themselves, because I think there is some crossover. Obviously, there's always going to be crossover, but oftentimes we see Apollo have some better data for certain leads than we do ZoomInfo, and vice versa. So I don't really think you can go wrong. I think it is important to have some sort of lead generation tool though. AI is definitely making a push into sales. Like you're kind of bringing that up at a funny time. Like we're looking at a lot of different AI components to what we do here at Avtech Capital. I don't think we would ever use that to replace a sales rep per se, because I think that needs to be handled by somebody. At least that's my opinion right now. But there are so many different AI components that are really changing the game when it comes to prospecting and communication with clients and how we find deals. And also just how we get better as a company when it comes to our approach in sales. So AI is really like making a push right now for sure. And so I think it's something to look at. Smile and dial obviously is always going to be the case, right? Like that's going to be something that isn't going to be replaced. I don't think anytime soon, but it would be smart to have a lead generation tool. There's a lot out there. Apollo and ZoomInfo are just a couple. There's like Lead IQ and a few others. And then yeah, AI, I think you can use it to your advantage for sure and be more efficient as a broker and a sales rep. Let's see.
Okay.
Zoom, yes, Zoom is very expensive for sure, but it's useful.
All right. I think that's the last of the questions. But again, if anybody, feel free to reach out to Grant directly. Feel free to head to our broker page on the website. And Todd, I was going to mention, if you missed our last webinar, we did a marketing webinar for brokers where we talk a little bit more about email prospecting, email marketing for brokers, really low cost tools. A little bit about AI. If you want to watch it, it's on our website as well. You could find some tools there that are really affordable and some that are free too. So I would recommend checking that out. But again, thank you everybody so much. Thank you, Grant, for giving us, 30, 40 minutes of your time. I think that was amazing. And we will wrap that up. Thank you so much for everybody joining.
Thanks, guys.